Welcome back, folks. It's another dark and scary night deep in the backwoods of Oklahoma. And the SLP has a lineup of possible Bigfoot vocals that should rattle some to the bone. Along with a demon dog-like thing spotted in Montana, some news of the week, a quasi rewind, and then wrapping it all up with a real Bigfoot encounter. All that and so much more coming up on the Squatchers Lounge Podcast. And now, here's the host who actually does what his beard tells him to do. The man, the myth, the legend, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Chewy call or fectoral fart? You make the call. All right, everybody. That's right. Thank you, Mr. Announcer Man, Mr. Cole Williams. That's right. Reno, the man, the myth, the legend is getting so much better at those. Hello, everybody. I am the Reverend Jeff, and we are here at the Church of Bigfoot because I won't feed you no bullshit. Well, I might, but then I'll tell you it's bullshit, at least in the end. Hey, we are finally getting on board looking for some other adventures, and late August looks to be the wrap-up camp for the El Dorado Bigfoot Watch, simply because the camps are closing early, a lot of them for repairs this year. So kind of put that in the back of your mind. We'll be in the lower El Dorado area around the scenic byway, and there's a whole lot of Bigfoot sightings all around that same area, and it's literally 38 miles as the crow flies from where we were, but nothing's burned out. All of that was missed, so it'll be an interesting way to close out the year for sure. So third week of August, I believe it's going to be the 25th is when we'll be looking to get that going. So that'll be the final expedition, but there'll be a couple of more smaller ones here in the meantime. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. I'm here, you're there. That makes this whole thing fantastic. And we are going to take an eyeball at some news tonight. I'm not sure what that's all about. We'll find out here. It's a little late now. A wolf-like creature. Yeah. Officials are unable to tell what the heck this thing is. It's the elephant in the room. Channel 9 really loves to tell me that I have an ad blocker on and they'd like me to take it off. But seeing as how NBC makes billions of dollars every quarter, I could care less. Anyhow, nobody's real sure what this thing is. Is it a dog? Is it a wolf? Is it a Kaido dog? Woo, man, bear, pig? Nobody's really sure. The DNA has been sent off to try and figure out what this thing is. It's awful big, but it's not as big as a dire wolf. I mean, I've seen wolves far bigger than this. A dire wolf, I can only imagine how big something like that would be. What's disturbing is nobody can really identify what this thing is. So are there going to be a bunch of these new types of things popping up now that pressure is put on all those animals not being hunted? You know, there's so many less coyote hunters and less wolf hunters in the wild. You know, are we going to end up with a lot of these weird looking things just all over the place? Who knows what their temperament will be? Maybe they just want to eat small children. All right, so the Shirkin Wonkin in Montana. Yeah. That's on Monster Info 101 season. It's been picking up some traction. So if you're really interested in what they think it could be of the cryptozoology world, that's what it would be. You can search for it on this channel. Okay. Ancient skulls maybe belong to the elusive humans called Denisovans. That's right. The Denisovans or Denisovians, however they want to call it. Up until now, we haven't had very much DNA to work with. Everything that we know about them was taken from just a couple of bits of a sliver of bone in a cave in the Siberia, Russia, which is why they're called Denisovians, because it was the Denisovia cave. Anyhow, now 2 partial skulls from eastern China are emerging as prime candidates for showing what these shadowy people may have actually looked like. It's pretty cool. The science, a Chinese-U.S. team presents 105,000 to 125,000-year-old fossils they call archaic Homo. That's right, means before us. That's exactly what that means. So that's kind of neat. If they're able to mimic the one side of the skull, you kind of get an eyeball of what the upper brow ridge would look like, what the brain pan looks like. Kind of gives you a good idea of, what line they were coming from. Neato stuffo. All right. So here we are in Australia with the legendary Aussie Panther, and all of a sudden a picture is produced. Probably, the greatest picture of a what is that? Well, I'm not really sure what that is. That Captain America's head? It's a really, really long tail. Unless that's a shadow effect. Boy, has it got some muscles. Reminds me of Stewie and the piggy put into the fair during the multiverse. Yeah, I'm not really sure what that thing is. Is it CGI? Oh, I don't know. Nobody else does either. Supposedly there are no large felines in Australia, just like there aren't supposed to be any Bigfoot type creatures. So who knows? But that is a very, very oddly shaped thing. And the shadow doesn't seem to be quite right. There's just a whole lot of odd about that picture. But, it comes from the dailymail.co.uk. So, you could probably use that one to wipe up with. This one, unfortunately, very, very, very sad thing. Cougar Attack leaves mountain biker dead. Another injured. Yeah, you're not going to outrun a mountain lion. And the moment you take off away from him, he thinks you're prey. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You're kind of screwed coming up on a mountain bike because he already thinks you're prey and he's going to pounce on you and try and get to you. Carry a whole bunch of pepper spray, a sidearm, something that'll kill it, a big sharp pointy thing of your choice. Don't go unarmed into cougar territory, especially on these mountain bike paths. 2 friends whose names haven't been released were riding on a remote road in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains near North Bend. He jumped the first victim and attacked him, said Sergeant Ryan Abbott of the King County Sheriff's Office. The second victim turned and started the run. The cougar saw that and went after the second victim. The victim saw his friend being pulled by the cougar. He got on his bike and started to bike away. The injured man rode for approximately 2 miles trying to get cell phone signal and call 911. After 30 minutes of searching, responders located the 32-year-old deceased man with the cougar standing on top of him. A missed shot by deputies spooked the cougar and it ran off. Authorities found the cougar in the trees less than 200 yards away several hours later, at which point they shot and killed the animal. DNA testing will take place to confirm whether it's the same animal. Yes, they're very, very, very sad things when these happen. When we encroach upon the wild and we put people there, this is why I tell everybody who comes camping with me, please come prepared. It is no joke. We are going into places where things eat other things as big as you. So while you're out there camping this summer, please, 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 please be safe. If you come across a cougar, if you come up on a cougar, don't look it in the eyes. Get as big as you can get and back away. If it still gets aggressive with you, take defensive action. Spray a bunch of bear spray in its face. And if you don't have bear spray, if you can't afford bear spray, I know it's expensive, go get a can of hornet nest spray. That stuff sprays 30 feet, and believe me, ain't nobody wanting that in their face. It might not be caps and friggin' loaded with pepper spray, but it's going to sting like hell when it hits eyeballs, mouth. I couldn't imagine the taste. Yeah. So another cheap alternative to bear spray is hornet spray, but don't make that depend upon your life. I'm not saying it will save your life. I'm just saying it would suck to be hit in the face with it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. New blog up by Steve Coles. The Squatch Detective's blog. That's right. Apparently, Inside Cryptozoology let out an article about, the fact that the Patterson Gimlin film is a hoax, and this is a hoax, and that's a hoax. Oh, what is it with you? This is a curse, and that is a curse, and that's cursed. This is cursed. Well, that's the only thing they can point to make things go away and say that somebody was in that suit. It was definitely a hoax. And it was all started off in an article on The Overtake, The Science of Cryptozoology by this fellow, Richard Worth, apparently. And Steve took exception to it and kind of brought some truth to the matter. So check out the Squatch Detective .wordpress.com and read up for yourself and see what the deal is. I'm still a faithful believer in the video that was shot down there in Bluff Creek. And it's going to take a whole lot more than Deadeye, one-eyed Willie to say he walked the sandbar down there, especially since I've been there to see what the difficulties of that is. Speaking of things, get yourself the Squatchers Lounge merch. There's all kind of stuff up there. There's shirts, there's canvas prints, there's posters, there's mugs, there's clocks, there's travel mugs. These are double insulated, by the way, which is really kind of nice. Stickers, and I'm putting up new designs at the end of the week. So I have been working on them as I have promised. And that, my friends, is the news of the week. Now, you know what we do after the news? It's time to get a little bit of quasi with our quasi theorist, Mr. Dean Cooper. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment here, I will locate his head coming out of a quasar, and we'll get to it. And now, quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
More about astral hells. Because my theory concerning the afterlife possibilities for money-grubbing televangelists and similar hucksters went over so well last week, this week I'll list some of the astral hells the Buddhists believe in. I have swiped most of the list from Wikipedia's entry on Buddhist hells, so there's your necessary attribution. Wikipedia swiped it from various other sources, so what the hell, here it goes. The primary source is the Dirghagama, a Buddhist sutra, from the chapter on hell within that sutra. The generic Hindu and Buddhist name for hell is Naraka, which means hells. The Hindu hells all have individual names and tortures which vary from sect to sect, but they're pretty much like the Buddhist ones. The first major Buddhist hell is called Thoughts. The second is called Black Rope. The third is called Crushing. The fourth is called Moaning. The fifth is called Great Moaning. The sixth is called Burning. The seventh is called Great Burning. The eighth is called Unremitting. The hell of thoughts itself contains 16 smaller hells. The smaller hells are 500 square yojana in area, or a little over 500 square miles. The first small hell is called Black Sand. The second small hell is called Boiling Excrement. The third is called 500 Nails. The fourth is called Hunger. The fifth is called Thirst. The sixth is called Single Copper Cauldron. The seventh is called Many Copper Cauldrons. The eighth is called Stone Pestle. The ninth is called Pus and Blood. The second is called Measuring Fire. The 11th is called Ash River. The 12th is called Iron Pellets. The 13th is called Axes and Hatchets. The 14th is called Jackals and Wolves. The 15th is called Sword Cuts. The 16th is called Cold and Ice. The names of these hells are pretty descriptive. I leave it to your imagination to further illustrate what goes on in them. Remember, those 16 are just a sub-list of hells in the hell of thoughts. The other 7 hells have their own sub-hells too. But since Wikipedia didn't quote the Dirghagama on that, I won't either. Most of the sinning I do is bad thoughts, which is true of most humans as well. There just aren't enough hours in the day to put all your thoughts into deeds. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi-theory of the week. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
That's right. BuyDean.com. He's also got a YouTube channel. He should probably post it there in the chat room. People could go out to his YouTube channel, listen to all the old quasis that their little hearts could be content upon. Speaking of all of their little hearts being content upon, if you haven't left me a message in chat, then I can't say hi to you on the air. So I would definitely say get a message down in the chat box. Yes, because it's time for shout outs. That's right. We're going to say who's here. Mr. Dean Cooper, he showed up first. Wow. Along with the Hillbilly John. How you doing, sir? Natalie Smith is in the house with us. Kathy Yarborough, she's joining us as well. There is Cheryl Willen. Well, hello there. Hello there. Shane Barber, the cryptid monster guy. How you doing there, Shane? Glad you are with us as well. Somebody said something about Wheezy hanging out with us tonight. I may have missed her last week, but I ain't gonna miss her this week. How you doing, Wheezy? Reminds me of the Jeffersons. George, yeah, Wheezy. How you doing there, sir? Glad you are with us as well. I know there's a whole lot more people coming up here because I saw them. I did. There, Danny from Texas. How you doing there? Glad you are with us as well as Timothy McEwen. How you doing there? It does happen, man. Night fishing is far more important than a live show with the Reverend Tim. It's quite all right, man. I'm glad you got the replay. That's the important part. Let's see here. I'd go fishing instead of listening to me. Are you kidding me? In a heartbeat. Don Rife, how you doing there, champ? Glad you are there as well. Keith Harden, Jonathan Doty, there, you're there. I'm here. Everybody's cool. I know there's more than this. See here. There's the man, Mr. Collier Williams. Reno is in the house. Reno in the house. Tonight's intro was far better than a lot of them, brother. Captain Caveman. I remember that cartoon. It was one of my favorites when I was a kid because he reminded me of me. Because if you were bigger than me and picked on me, I'd pick up a club and beat you with it. True story. Don't care. Keith Harden, if I didn't say hi to you already, I certainly have now because I didn't want to leave anybody out. I know there's more people than this. Cameron Young's checking in from the sports talk. Yeah, I want to call it Sherman Heights, but that's not right. Post what your thing is, your YouTube channel is in the box there, Cam, because I'm failing tonight. I am failing so bad tonight. A lot of things on my mind. Spike, Jeff, how you doing there, Cheap? Aaron Duncan's in the house. Can Scratch Root Man. There we go. I knew there was a bunch of people I was missing. Chris, just plain old Chris. How you doing? I'm doing well. How you doing, darling? Root Man. I still dig that name. What kind of root? Oh man, I had my first soda in like days. I've been drinking nothing but water, eating fruit, even some vegetables. Can you imagine that, Christopher? Been eating my vegetables, man. Potatoes are a tuber, but they kind of count as vegetables. Trey Thomas, there's Oreo cream walks. I've been worried about you. Ain't seen you in like forever. Robles, I am so good. Oh, Christy, there you go. All right. That's right. Xander, who the heck is John Briers is in the house. There's a Xander Hansen in the house. Eagles cry. That's right. I know a guy named Perchin Eagle, but I don't think that's the same thing. Let's see here. We are getting down to the bottom of the land. There we are, folks. Yeti's uncle, you made it in. Absolutely did. Obsidian Radio, how you doing there? I'm sure Brown Dwarf will float in at some point, and I hope Miss Cassie's feeling better. I know she had some things on her mind. So hot diggity dog, I almost missed you and Forrest Cop. Look at that Rod Dupree and the place to be. No, poor Jevon's having a hard time with his recording, well, with his computer just in general, I'm having a feeling he needs to reinstall the whole thing, but I don't think he wants to take that on. So we'll see. And with that, my friends, them's the shout outs. Never missed anybody. I'm sorry, but I don't think he's here yet, but he'll show up somewhere, Keith. There we go. All right. So we are talking about Oklahoma tonight. That's right. Well, we've gone there once before, but I came across these particular vocals, and I honestly just didn't know what to think of them. It's Oklahoma, so there's only so many large mammals in especially southern Oklahoma, where we're actually talking about. Is specifically, well, let's take a listen to it here. What the first one is it's a minute cut of just the original file as it played. It was originally like a 20-minute file, but I grabbed the minute 35 of just an appropriate representation of what these calls were. And let's take a listen to it, and we'll talk about what happens after. So there you have it. That's the first representation of it. Now, some people say, "Oh, that's the elk bugle." No, well, that'd be fine if there were any elk in the bogs of Oklahoma, but there are not. And someone, well, that's a moose bellow. Again, no moose in Oklahoma. So if we eliminate those two things that it very well should have been, then we have to starting to think about what it could have been. I don't know. I do know that the original recordings were done through a parabolic dish, which is partially why you hear that hum in the background that sounds like machinery. It actually isn't. That's actually some of the mechanics within the recording device itself. And that's why when you hear the human voice, it sounds quieter than the calls, because the human voice is behind the parabolic dish. So the dish is doing its job. Now, I did enhance the very first one of those calls, and I'm not sure what to consider it. Let's take a listen to it. So there was obviously a seeking call and then a response call of something. Now, because I couldn't get real clear. I isolated that very first call and brought it up even a little bit further. It's real short, but take a listen to it. It doesn't. It sounds more like a whoop to me than anything else. And then the return call is almost what they consider like a shriek. So in that clip, you can actually hear that there's 3 different animals giving off those types of calls. There's a low, loud one, there's a high one further away, and then there's one that is between them that's a little bit closer. Some people I've seen on these were posting that they were cattle calls, but I've been around a lot of cows, man. Bulls make some really weird ass noises, but they don't just usually let off with a single bugle like that or a single call like that. I usually they're a whole lot more vocal than that. The last piece that I cut off was that interchange at the very end of that longer piece there. Let's take a listen to that one. If you guys are out there in Oklahoma or in those boggy areas, definitely let us let us know what it might be. I don't really know exactly what it is, but it's definitely strange. Definitely does not sound like cows to me. I really just don't think so. Anyhow, what I've done now is I've got another one for us here. I got a first minute long effort of it that has some calls in it that are I'm not really, it's just the same location on the other side of the bog, whatever that would mean. So I guess their dish is searching the same area just from a different parked location. Now, while I very well may admit that some of that sounded very cow-like, some of it sounded specifically like mooing. I was able to pull a couple of things out of it that still didn't make any sense, like this particular clip. Okay, that's not the same as a moo. I don't know what makes that kind of noise out there, but the last thing that I grabbed was a section of that. And what's more important is not what's the loudest. It's what's going on in the background of this clip that makes it far more interesting than anything else that I've seen. So let's take a listen to this one. With the whooping and the hooping and what sound like monkey cries going on in the background, and then one of those calls coming out from it. I'm not sure what that is. I would really kind of like to know. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot, but as the ancient alien hair boy says, it's Bigfoot. Yeah, it does kind of sound kind of hornish. I agree, but I'm not really sure. Yeah, there's no moose there. There's no elk there. Cows, lots of cows, but that just doesn't sound like cows to me. A final hello there to Mr. Reverend Matthew Gaines. I'm glad you were there as well. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Squatchers Lounge Podcast. I do have another Real Bigfoot Encounter. It's the story of William Rowe versus the Bigfoot. That's right. It predates the Patterson-Gimlin footage by quite a bit, and it's an awesome story. So if you haven't heard it, please stick around and check it out. And if not, then we will see everybody right here. Same bat channel, same Squatchy station time. Yeah, that's same Squatch channel, same Squatch time next week. Right here on the Squatchers Lounge Podcast. May you all be healed by the blinding light of health and wellness for you and all those in you around you. Amen. For all of you believers. And for those non-believers, we'll believe enough for you. Amen. All right. And with that, thanks, guys, for being here. There will be an after hangout for a little while tonight. So, Brother Squatch, be with you. Welcome to another edition of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeff. This week's story comes to us from a classic story of William Rowe from the affidavit from 1957. This encounter predates the Patterson sightings and its video, so let's hear his story. Ever since I was a small boy back in the forest of Michigan, I've studied the lives and the habits of wild animals. Later, when I supported my family in northern Alberta by hunting and trapping, I spent many hours just observing the wild things. They fascinated me, but the most incredible experience I ever had with a wild creature occurred near a little town called Tetchwan Cache, British Columbia, about 80 miles west of Jasper, Alberta. I had been working on a highway near Tetchwan Cache for about 2 years. In October 1955, I decided to climb 5 miles up Mika Mountain to an old deserted mine just for something to do. I came in sight of the mine at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after an easy climb. I had just come out of a patch of low brush into clearing when I saw what I thought was a grizzly bear. It was in the brush on the other side. I'd shot a grizzly near that spot about a year before. This one was only about 75 yards away. I didn't want to shoot it. I had no way to get it out. So I sat down on a small rock and watched while my rifle was in my hands. I could see part of the animal's head and the top of one shoulder. A moment later, it raised up and stepped out into the opening. Then I saw it was not a bear. This, to the best of my recollection, is what the creature looked like and how it acted as it came across the clearing directly towards me. My first impression was of a huge man, about 6 feet tall, almost 3 feet wide, and probably weighing somewhere near 300 pounds. It was covered from head to toe with dark brown, silver-tipped hair, but as it came closer, I saw by its breast that it was a female. And yet its torso was not curved like a female's. Its broad frame was straight from shoulder to hip. Its arms were much thicker than a man's arms and longer, reaching almost to its knees. Its feet were broader proportionally than a man's, about 5 inches wide at the front and tapering to a much thinner heel. When it walked, it placed the heel of its foot first, and then I could see the gray-brown skin or hide on the soles of the feet. It came to the edge of the brush I was hiding in, within 20 feet of me, and squatted down on its haunches. Reaching out its hands, it pulled the branches of the bushes towards it and stripped the leaves with its teeth. Its lips curled flexibly around the leaves as it ate. I was close enough to see that its teeth were white and even. The shape of the creature's head was somewhat resembled a Negro's. The head was higher at the back than at the front. The nose was broad and flat. The lips and chin produced further than its nose, but the hair that covered it, leaving bare only the parts of its face around its mouth, nose, and ears, made it resemble an animal as much as a human. None of its hair, even on the back of its head, was longer than an inch, and that on its face was much shorter. Its ears were shaped like a human's ears. Its eyes were small and black like a bear's, and its neck was almost unhuman, thicker and shorter than any man's I've ever seen. As I watched this creature, I wondered if some movie company was making a film at this place, and that what I saw was an actor, made up to look partly human and partly animal. But as I observed it more, I decided it would be impossible to fake such a specimen. Anyway, I learned later that there was no such company near that area, nor in fact did anyone live in Nika Mountain, according to the people who lived in Tetu Cache. Finally, the wild thing must have gotten my scent, for it looked directly at me through an opening in the bush. A look of amazement crossed its face. It looked so comical at the moment, I had to grin. Still in a crouched position, it backed up 3 or 4 short steps, then straightened up to its full height and started to walk rapidly back the way it had come. For a moment, it watched me over its shoulder as it went, not exactly afraid, but as though it wanted no contact with anything strange. The thought came to me that if I shot it, I would possibly have a specimen of great interest to the scientists of the world. I had heard stories of the Sasquatch, the giant hairy Indians that live in the legends of British Columbian Indians, and so many claim are still in fact alive today. Maybe this was Sasquatch, I told myself. I unleveled my rifle. The creature was still walking rapidly away, again turning its head to look in my direction. I lowered the rifle. Although I have called the creature it, I felt now that it was a human being, and I knew I'd never forgiven myself if I killed it. Just as I came to the other patch of the brush, it threw its head back and made a particular noise that seemed to be a half laugh and half language, and which I could only describe as kind of a whiny sound. Then it walked from the small brush into a stand of long pole pine. I stepped out into the opening and looked across the small ridge just beyond the pie to see if I could see it again. It came out on the ridge a couple of 100 yards away from me, tipped its head back again, and again emitted only the sound that I had heard it make. But what this half-laugh, half-language was meant to convey, I don't know. It disappeared then, and I never saw it again. I wanted to find out if it lived on vegetation entirely or ate meat as well, so I went down and looked for signs. I found it in 5 different places, and although I examined it thoroughly, I could find no hair or shells or bugs or insects, so I believe it was strictly a vegetarian. I found one place where it had slept for a couple of nights under a tree. Now the nights were cold up on the mountain, and this time of year especially, and yet it had no use of fire. I found no sign that it possessed even the simplest of tools, nor a single companion while in this place. Whether this was Sasquatch or not, I do not know. It will always remain a mystery to me unless another one is found. Signed, William Rowe. For William, this was the strangest day of his life, and for me, it was yet another real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.